Hi, I'm Jess.
Hi, I'm Kristen.
And welcome to ReDIScover, a space where we celebrate the childlike qualities that make up the essence of who we are while engaging with the world around us, both authentically and imaginatively.
Nothing is off the table here, and we talk a little bit
or a lot
about, well, everything.
Around here, we're always rediscovering, sharing empowering stories, and connecting our hearts and minds with every facet of life.
While we, of course, talk about the real stuff,
we invite you to be a part of the conversation as we broaden our perspectives, release limitations,
and grow to create our most joyful and fulfilling lives together.
So come along with us as we rediscover all the best parts of you
and bring a little bit of magic into your day.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jess.
Hi, I'm Kristen.
And welcome back to this week's episode of ReDIScover. Happy February, everyone.
It's the month of love.
It is the month of love. And last year, we dedicated the month of February to a theme of dating and relationships, which was a ton of fun, actually. And emotion. It was a really deep dive of a month. This month is going to be a little bit different, as we wanted to take more of a spiritual approach to the concept of love, and we just want to talk about soulmates and have kind of a sit down conversation. I think it'll be a really fun deep dive for us to go into.
Yeah, this is totally one of those conversations where you grab a drink with a friend, or you sit down and have coffee with a friend, and you just end up on a tangent about like a really existential topic. And that's kind of how the idea for this episode was born. I think I was like, I really want to talk about the idea of soulmates, because I had a lot of opinions about it that kind of differed from the way mainstream media and especially like film portrays the idea of soulmates. It's this very like romanticized, like once in a lifetime lightning strikes kind of thing. You've done quite a deep dive actually into like the spiritual implications of soulmates and just like the different types of soulmates, which I kind of knew a little bit about, but I've learned a lot about in the last couple of days. So I'm excited to get into it. And whether you have, again, like I feel like we gave this disclaimer last year, but whether you have a significant other or not, wherever your relationship status is at, this conversation is not just about romantic partnership, which I think is something, again, we've been conditioned to think of when we hear the word soulmates. So this is kind of a broader look and sort of like a zoom out. And maybe it will inspire you to kind of examine the relationships that you do have in the different spaces of your life a little differently, and sort of look at where those people are at when they came into your journey and how they're complementing it as it continues. So I'm excited to get into this topic, and I'm going to let Jess give us a synopsis of the different types of soulmates, because this is like, Jess is our spiritual sunflower guru, and this is like totally her wheelhouse. So Jess, take it away.
Absolutely. And I think this episode will be really interesting too, because we'll see how both of our opinions and perspectives are similar and different. Like Kristen and I very well may have different outlooks on certain aspects of this, and a lot of similar, as will you. And it's just a topic that we are not going to know for sure about in our human lifetimes. So it's a really fun one to speculate and do research about, especially from people who are very spiritually inclined and focused. There's a lot of information out there. So my personal perspective that I've accumulated over the years. So as I've mentioned before, I was raised Catholic, and it's very, straight to the point. Like, you live a life and then you go to heaven or hell, and that's it. That's your life in the end. I have gravitated away from that perspective and kind of become more open to the thought, because I just like the thought of this. And I don't know if it's a deep knowing or something along those lines, where it just kind of resonates, where I like the idea of souls living multiple lifetimes. And that is why I'm a big believer in soulmates, not just being one singular person, not just being romantic, but actually being a network of a soul family. So, with this idea of coming back into multiple lifetimes, I have kind of come to the conclusion as of now, at this point in my life, that I think that you go through these lifetimes with the same beings, and there may be many of them. And you reincarnate into these lives in different roles. And in this lifetime, it may be your best friend or your mom or a romantic partner or anyone. And then maybe in another lifetime, your sisters or your coworkers or something along those lines. But I think the whole concept of this soul family is that you all go through these lifetimes together to learn something and evolve your soul in like lessons that you need to learn to evolve. So it evolves you to get to that highest vibrational space or closer to God or the universe or like whatever that like really pure energy is. I've noticed, and I think I've felt this way since before I even knew of this concept, but when you meet people and you feel like you've known them forever, like these people, I think, are part of your soul family and they were supposed to enter your life at this point. It's like, have we watched Loki from the first episode? There's exact points in time with these events that happen, no matter what, even if you have different scenarios in a multiverse, like these exact points happen. I think that your soul family come into your life because they are supposed to, and they're supposed to accompany you on your journey. So that's why I think when I meet someone, I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I've known you forever. Like that's a very obvious soul family. Soulmate.
And I think to that point, it helps you to be more intentional when you do meet people instead of just, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you, whatever. And you just go through these formalities. But if you meet someone and you have this impression that you've known them or you knew them before, like they just feel inherently familiar to you, you can approach that relationship more intentionally from day one. And I love the word intentional, but I think that that's so helpful, whether it's a friendship or, a coworker or even like someone you might end up being romantically interested in. You have this sense of like, this person's here for a reason, whether I'm meant to learn something from them or whether this relationship is going to, last a lifetime or not, for like my time on this earth or not, which we'll get into. There's like a definitive reason that they're here. And that's like exciting, but it's also, there is a higher purpose to your life. And like, this isn't just like a chance encounter, not to use the cliche, everything happens for a reason, but I like to say, like, I don't believe in coincidences.
You can kind of take inventory of all the people you have in your life and just kind of intuitively feel out those people that have really made a really deep impact on you on a level that you can't even really put into words. And I think those are soulmates, or people who are there for pivotal parts of your life. And they may not, like Kristen just said, they may not be there for the long haul. Like, I think that's a big myth about soulmates that needs to be busted, that soulmates need to be forever. And I don't think that's really the case. I think there's seasons for certain soulmates because your personal soul is evolved to a point and it needs to evolve more. And perhaps by them moving on their own path, that evolves you in a way that it wouldn't have if they were there the entire time.
Yes, so that is so true. And as Jess can personally attest, and several other people in my life, I have experienced that. And like that loss feels so heavy and their absence feels so irreplaceable when you do lose a person that feels like a soulmate. But then time inevitably works its magic and you find yourself moving on and you realize all that person taught you, but you also realize how capable you actually are. And maybe their absence was just meant to teach you that. And if that's all that you take from it is that like you can be your own strength sometimes, then that's great. But those are called, correct me if I'm wrong, Jess, we have a type of soulmate that does not always linger for a lifetime. I know we kind of skipped one type, but maybe since we're here, we should talk about that type first.
So the concept of karmic soulmates that I've learned about is really interesting. So karmic obviously comes from the word karma. So think of it as this person or this soul is helping you in this lifetime to complete a karma. The law of karma, I really believe, is real. You can see that when bad things happen and it comes to bite you in the butt at the simplest form. Karma, I think, always plays its course over time. And even from lifetime to lifetime, I really think that you have karmic soulmates that come into this life with you to teach you something, like on a very, very deep level. And I really think that those soulmates are predetermined. Like you have, I envision it as you meet with a soul and you're like, okay, I'm going to come into this life and we're going to date. And this is going to happen. And it's going to ultimately end in us parting ways, but we are going to evolve so much that we need to go through this experience so we can complete the karmic cycle from last time, or we can complete the karmic cycle that evolved in this current life. So we can both move forward.
Yeah. And I think the quick disclaimer that I'm thinking of in here, because my red flag of toxic relationships are okay is going off. That is not what we're saying.
Oh, no. But it may seem toxic, but not in a way that's like, oh, that's good. It's like to learn what to not do.
Yes. And I think like, obviously there are outliers. Like if someone is physically harming you, things like that, like obviously that's not a relationship you need to continue in to learn something from. Like that relationship is dead. Get as far away from it as you can. But the people that I have been in relationships before where I have like known, like, I don't see how this could possibly play out. There's too many factors involved here that are working against this, just that are surrounding it. However, I know, like inherently with a capital K, know that this person is here to teach me something, that we are meant to learn something from each other, and that we're going to take that on. And it sounds a little masochistic because it's like you're subjecting yourself to pain. But at the same time, I think we can all agree that those are the relationships that teach us the most and grow us the most and really mold us into the person that we need to be to meet the next person who will meet us on our journey to become who we need to be to meet whatever is coming next. Like it's always, I like to say that like you're always becoming, like your life is never not about your becoming. You're just always learning from something, moving forward, learning from something, moving forward. And there are seasons of life that feel more like one step forward, two steps back, and some that just feel really fruitful and prosperous. But those people who even temporarily come along, whether it's a friend or a partner or whatever, to teach you something, are really integral to that growth. So you're never left like, what was that all for?
Yeah, I really don't think any meeting with anyone is for nothing, because it makes you who you are. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, what you choose to keep close to your heart and what you choose to release, and the way that you view the world and the perspectives you gain and the connections you make, it's all part of your story. And I think that's really, it's beautiful in a lot of ways, and it's strange in a lot of ways too. You're like, whoa,
but that's life.
But yeah. And if you don't meet these people, you truly wouldn't be the same person that you are today if you didn't go through those experiences, whether they be enjoyable or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think we put too much emphasis as a culture on like every moment has to be perfect and happy and wonderful. And the reality is that's not true. But those spaces where, we might be like going through some struggle or dealing with something more challenging, or where we rely on the people around us, the soulmates that are in that season of life on our journey with us, to really like lift us up and to say like, I see you. And so it is a cyclical thing too. When people leave your life, there are people that remain and
new ones that come in.
God will place people on your path for the season of your life that you're in to help you along to that higher purpose, that higher vibration, that higher space that you are meant to eventually inhabit. And you get to do it together. And so you're like, your hand is always being held, and there's always an advocate for your journey that is helping you along.
I feel like I have these kinds of conversations all the time.
This is literally like you're all just sitting in on a conversation like we would be having if we were getting coffee or walking around or something.
It's such a natural thing, I think, for humans to try to figure out like the existential parts of the universe. It's like, I just want to know.
But it reminds me of like when you would have a sleepover and you'd stay up all night talking about different things. And there would always be like that one other friend at the sleepover. Like everyone else would be asleep, but someone else would stay up with you and talk with you about this kind of stuff. And you would be like, this person just gets me. And
just
like,
get me. Maybe it's a soulmate.
It's a soulmate.
So there is one other type of soulmate that I've actually like learned a lot about, just because I find it quite intriguing, and it actually is kind of controversial sometimes, but this soulmate type is called a twin flame, which is a mirror soul. The different parts of you directly complement this other part of the soul, and there's a lot of polarities, but when these two souls unite, it's like very, very magic and very, very elevated, and like this really ethereal experience. Twin flames often like have a lot of conflict and a lot of turbulence on their path, because it's such a strong energy that it kind of tends to make one chase and make the other repel. And they will constantly kind of like come back into life and leave, and come back and leave, with all of those weird, seemingly coincidental moments. And yeah, it very much like amplifies your insecurities and your doubts, because they need to come up to be healed. And the relationship's just very intense, and you keep coming back together, and like the connection feels very divine and very on a whole nother level. You have a lot of like telepathy and everything. The reason I say that this is controversial sometimes is because a lot of people really like the idea of this, and I can see why, because it's like, it's kind of like feeling this fulfillment and like, oh, the most intense romantic relationship like ever. Yeah. There's so much passion. There's so much like back and forth, but
everybody wants a storybook romance. Like,
yeah,
don't tell yourself you don't. You do.
Yeah, of course. But I think the thing with twin flames is that often as humans, we get attached to things, right? So I think that a lot of people get attached to this idea and this specific person, and it can kind of turn the relationship a bit toxic sometimes, or a bit to the point of where you're not getting treated well, and you're just holding on to hope that it's going to happen. And the attachment factor can be slightly dangerous, because you might be spending your life waiting for this one specific person, when there are other soulmates out there who could give you such a great relationship as well, and give you all the kindness and like the things that you're desiring from this person,
and the things that you deserve too. Like, you don't need to be in a tumultuous relationship.
No,
you deserve to feel at peace.
Yeah, that's one thing I want to say about relationships. You deserve to have a peaceful relationship and an enjoyable one.
I've been on the Sex and the City kick lately, because the reboot And Just Like That came out, which I watched the entirety of. And then I decided to go back and watch the original show, because I loved the original show, and like compare the two now, which is very weird to do if any of you are doing it. But anyway, the thought that came to my mind when you started talking about twin flame soulmates was Carrie and Big, and I think everyone will agree with that, because that was just like the thing that like eradicated all logical action from her. And you're watching it and you're like upset by her decisions, but you're like, a part of you gets it, because like there's nothing that's rational about this feeling that they both have, that they just keep coming back to each other. And all throughout the original series. And you had a pop culture, I think that your example is to do with twin flames. I
do too. Yeah, I have a speculation that Ross and Rachel from Friends are a twin flame relationship. And I don't know. You guys can argue with me if you disagree, but I really do think that they have a story. They, met in high school and then they parted ways, and then they met again and then they parted ways. And it was just like the two of them needed to learn different things so they could get on the same page. And then they would, and then something else would happen. So it was like their souls were kind of always going through this evolution, and they kept coming back together, but then they kept going and dating other people. But they like had this string that continually tied them to one another the entire time. And in Friends, of course, they did have their happy ending, as far as we know, as viewers. Just because the show ends, like, did the relationship just suddenly get all?
We are speaking about fictional characters here, so
Well, I like to think of it as the Friends universe, like the Marvel universe. They all exist, just in their own universe.
I would love to know where Captain America is existing and go to that universe.
Right? I know. Maybe, I don't know. I feel like I always personify everything as like existing.
You do, and I do too. And it's actually made me feel very safe to do so, because I used to be someone who was criticized for empathizing with fictional characters so much. And I've done this my entire life. I also got paid to do it for a long time. So I feel like it's a very natural instinct for me. But I will like go see a movie and like take on whatever I just will take on all the emotions. I'll just throw it all in the backpack and carry it around the whole time. Because that's what art is meant to do. It's meant to connect you to it. It's meant to resonate with something from your experience. So yes, we are talking about fictional characters, but it's just, these fictional characters are probably representations of people we know.
I think we had another really good point that sort of came up, but we didn't really dive into the whole concept of soulmates not completing you. I think, Kristen, you had a lot to say about this. So if you want to dive in, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. And again, like, as your resident single person here, and again, we're not just talking about romantic relationships. Obviously, we are like largely talking about romantic relationships, but these rules apply in all areas of life. I think we touched on this a little bit last year during February as well, when we were talking about love and relationships. But I think that the media has done a really poor job of shaping our minds from a young age to envisage this person who will make all things beautiful and our lives will be complete, and we as beings will feel complete because this person has come into our lives and made everything better. And you sort of see this movie where this person is floundering around and they feel lost and they're not happy. And then they meet the person and like all of a sudden everything is sunshine and rainbows. And we know that that's not reality, but I think it's not a fair assessment of the human experience, because no human person can ever actually complete you or me. And while we are whole and complete beings individually on our own, we are also beings that are always becoming. So it's sort of this paradox where like, I am a whole, complete, like uniquely created and loved person. And so is any person that I might date or enter into a relationship with. But we are also both broken people and people who have challenges and struggles and demons and personality traits that differ and things that we're working on and working through. And so we're always kind of doing that. And it's sort of like two cycles are running at the same time. And so I was saying to Jess, like, finding a soulmate doesn't actually mean that your life is any more or less like worthy, or you're any more or less worthy of love and peace and beautiful things than you were before, even though society will tell you otherwise. And you get kind of like stacked up against the single people. Like, when society stacks them up against each other, they always find the single person lacking. As a single person, I don't even feel the need to defend it, because I just know that it's not true. I know that like having a partner brings a unique enhancement to your life, but it doesn't make your life like any more or less worth living, or any less, it doesn't take away any more possibility that like beautiful, amazing things can happen to you, because I am a single person who loves my life, and I'm generally not every day, but most of the time, a very happy person. And moreover, when I think about the spaces that are lacking in my life, I don't associate any of them with the fact that I don't have a partner. And that is the genuine, honest truth. And it's taken me a long time to get to this point, but I think that once I realized, oh, I don't actually need a person to be happy. Now the idea of meeting someone is only exciting and not dire at all. And I'm not thinking like, oh, when am I going to meet someone? I just know that like, if I do and it feels good and right, then like, great. But if not, like, no harm, no foul, no bruise. Just really like refusing to be put into that box has been so helpful.
Like you said, like the media really makes it seem like you have one singular soulmate who's going to completely change and make your life magical.
Yeah.
And you know what? That is possible. I mean, I don't really know if I believe there's like one singular soulmate.
I don't either. I
think there are.
And that's controversial too.
It is, but I think there's actually a lot of viable options of people who could suit your life and really enhance your life and make it wonderful. But you also need to understand, like Kristen said, you're both two individual people with your own baggage. So like when you get into a relationship, a lot of the things that you may have been suppressing kind of come to the surface. I really believe like as being in a long-term relationship, like I realized that your partner really brings out a lot of your blind spots. And makes you confront things that you wouldn't normally, because you have somebody who knows you better than anyone and is always on the outside looking in, so they can really call you on your stuff. And I think that's really what it. So like, I think every like serious partner you have is a soulmate to an extent, because I don't really think that there's one singular one. Lifelong soulmates, I definitely believe exist, but I also think there's seasonal soulmates that exist too.
Yeah. There's like a full-time, part-time.
No, but
no, I get what you mean.
I don't think there's one soulmate who's going to come and save the day. On the white horse, typical white knight stereotype. But
do any of us really want that anymore? Like,
and I really
did we ever buy into that narrative? I don't know that we did.
I don't either. And I think the idea is
it's so romantic. It's so
romanticized.
And so it's easy to imagine like, oh, there's just one person out there for me. And like, I will meet that person when it's perfectly, absolutely right. I guess I'm backtracking a little bit here. I don't know that I think that every serious partner is a soulmate, because I have had really toxic yet serious relationships. One in particular that I'm thinking of where I know that person was not a soulmate. And that was just a matter of, my vulnerability and my naivete getting in the way of a manipulative, aggressive person.
That's true. And could that be maybe just a good lesson?
Yeah. And I think
a lesson wrapped up in a person.
Right. That's something to delineate too. Like not everyone who teaches you something is a soulmate. Not every soulmate is going to teach you as much as the next one. So being able to identify that is really all about like learning more about yourself. If I had even 1/10 of the self-knowledge I have and the self-awareness that I have now, I would never have even given that relationship a thought. That never would have happened. But I also know that I am this way now because I went through it. So it's a little bit, that is the pitfalls. That is one of the pitfalls of being a human being and living this life on this broken planet. Like that's just what happens sometimes. But I can think of two people that I've been in more serious relationships with that have absolutely felt like soulmates to me, both in the time that they were in my life and even now. And I know that they were meant to be both temporary and integral to my story. So I think that that's important to take into account too. Like there isn't, I mean, again, this is a controversial statement and obviously this is just what we believe, but I agree. I don't think that there's just one person out there that could be for you. Like, don't sell yourself short. There could be more than one person who would want to spend their life with you.
Exactly. And when you find one that you really like and they compliment you and you compliment them, like, then, go all in on it and enjoy it, because it's like, I just think that it's really important to enjoy what you have and not be waiting and waiting and waiting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something.
And I think that helps a lot too with this, this culture of choice that we live in, where we are constantly confronted with what ifs and what if something better is out there. And so this concept of having more than one soulmate, I think it's easy to make it work for you and go, well, like maybe there's someone better out there for me than the person I'm with now. I think this particularly with like our social media investment and the fact that we're constantly looking at people's lives or people's partners. I'm speaking from the experience of having been with a partner who was like constantly stacking me up against other potentially more viable women for whatever reason. I think a lot of girls, maybe men too, but I think a lot of people can relate to this. It's not an excuse to go, well, maybe this person is my next soulmate or my more viable soulmate or whatever. But it is an opportunity to examine that culture of choice. And like Jess said, like if you meet someone who you do vibe with really well and you do connect with on a soul level, then like maybe stop wondering, maybe just go with it. Maybe just
exercise your choice and just enjoy it.
And just like surrender to the beautiful thing that you're in and stop wondering or worrying about what's coming or what's out there or what you might have missed. Like you're missing what you're in right now by thinking about all those other things.
Mm-hmm.
You're literally missing your life by worrying about lives that you're not currently living. So sounds a little backwards when you put it that bluntly, but that's literally what humans do. And so I think that that's a good opportunity to live a little counterculturally in that way.
Such a mic drop.
Boom. And on that note, I would just like to say, oh no, go ahead.
I just have one more point to bring up.
Yes.
Before we wrap today's episode. I think we've talked about all sorts of soulmates and especially romantic soulmates, but I really want to make a point to say that platonic soulmates, I very much believe exist. And I think that you and I, Kristen, definitely have a platonic soulmate relationship.
I was literally about to say this.
This is, well, there's some proof for you right there, folks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think our story is proof of that. I think if any of you know our story, or if you have listened to the friendship episode from last year where we kind of unpacked it, like we became instant friends. How many years ago is it now? What year are we in? 12 years ago? Has it been 12 years? I think this year will be 12 years, 12 years ago. And then we spent many years apart. And then when we reconnected again, it was literally like those many, many years had not happened, but also like many, many more had. Like it was like a different lifetime, but the same soul. And I absolutely agree. I feel that you are my soulmate too.
I 100% agree. I think we were sisters in another lifetime or something. Like I really do.
Okay. There's a story, and did your mom tell it on the episode we did with her? I can't remember if she told it during the episode or after we finished and we were all just sitting there crying together. But she definitely told the most relevant piece of the story on the episode. So I feel like I can safely say this, but your mom had a miscarriage, like the year that my mom was pregnant with me. And I think the due date was like strangely like goosebumps strangely close to when I was born. And I think that was the baby. Did they know the gender, or was the baby, I think, supposed to be a girl? I can't remember.
I have this feeling that it was, but I can't
remember if she told me she like felt that it was going to be a girl or that she knew that it was going to be a girl. I don't know anything. Anyway, it was just like, I remember just getting goosebumps and being like, wait, really? Because I always have felt this connection to you and your family, and like not even just your immediate family, obviously getting to know your whole extended family over the course of the last decade plus. And I feel such a sense of like, this isn't just my friend's family. Like this is, I don't know. It's like, they're my family too. And I totally think we were sisters in another lifetime. So
Me too. And maybe, I think your mom really needed you for her journey in this life.
Yeah.
So maybe you
I
transferred
would
over
like to
there.
think so. I
Who
think I need
knows?
her too.
I think you do too. Our journey of, becoming friends and separating and coming back really pushed both of us to learn a lot of lessons that we wouldn't have normally learned. And I think that you and I probably came into this life and we're like, we need to go through some stuff so we can learn this and evolve.
Yeah.
And
all of the evidence points to that for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, I learned a lot of things about communicating with people and how to like handle confrontation in a healthy way and collaborating and, learning about yourself individually and like making choices for you. And also, I think we both learned that separately. And I don't know, there was just so many lessons within that. You can listen to the full friendship episode for our in-depth analysis.
Yeah.
I really think it's a soulmate type of story. And I mean, now we're creating this together. So like there's this whole creative aspect to our story and who really knows like what else is going to come about. But I really do think it's interesting and just find the whole concept so fascinating. And platonic soulmates are real, guys. I mean, take inventory of your life and see where you resonate with that. Because I really bet you have at least one, if not a handful or many.
Especially if you are in a season of like romantic singleness right now. I think that this is a really good time to invest in yourself, but in your platonic soulmates as well. So examining those relationships, those friendships, and like even your family, and like finding space to, give more to those is super powerful. And I think transformational too, because I have friends who now feel like family to me because of the time that we get together and the way we get to like uniquely invest in each other. Because I have this season where, I'm not, more occupied with a partner, or occupied at all with one. So it can be a really, really beautiful time. And obviously we talked about that more, and I'm not on the singleness episode, and I'm not going to get into it now, but like Jess said, just take some inventory and really look at like how people walk alongside you. And you might see those relationships a little bit differently going forward. And so I think the action item here is whoever you feel your current soulmate is, or one of them, like reach out to them today after you listen to this, share this episode with them, and find a unique way to invest in that relationship this week.
And even if it's just taking a moment to think about what you've learned from your relationship with that person, or multiple, whatever you feel drawn to, I really like to focus on in life, because I know life can be challenging or beautiful or both. And I think at the root of it all is lessons to learn on your journey. And I think that's where I really draw my inspiration to keep going and to keep being curious about the mystical ways of being a human and life and the universe and just existing here on this planet. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode today. And these were just, thoughts that, circulate in our heads, and we're just sharing them with you. And take what you will, leave what you won't. And I really love being able to have a space and a podcast partner to do a deep dive into topics like this with, because they're truly, truly fascinating.
Yeah. Just like we always kind of convey in one way or another, just be curious, be authentic in your curiosity, and see where it takes you. I think that that's what this whole ReDIScover journey has been about, and we're excited to continue it. And on that note, stay tuned in 2 weeks, because we are going to continue a spiritual conversation. We're going to have a special guest with us, and we might even bring Disney into the mix a little bit. So
by might, she means definitely. So if you're a Disney fan and you also love a good spiritual conversation, next time is going to be the time for you to come back to ReDIScover and listen along. I think it'll be a fun episode. Thank you guys so much for listening and for coming back. this week. We will see you in 2 weeks on Tuesday with our next episode. As always, thank you for being here. And until next time, we will talk to you soon.
Bye. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of ReDIScover.
If you haven't already subscribed, hit that button and join the ReDIScover fam.
If you're like us and you have opinions about everything, leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. Your positivity inspires our creativity, and we love hearing from you.
Join us every other Tuesday for brand new episodes full of rediscovery.
And each month has its own unique theme, so be sure to catch them all.
Follow us on Instagram at positively.kristen and at jessicafay508.
And check out Jess's blog at theroadjesstraveled with 1l.com.
Until next time,
bye!